Well, hello everyone. I'm here with my friend. I'm calling her the Louisiana light worker. This is Nicole LeBlanc. We don't pronounce the C though, do we? In LeBlanc.
No, it's LeBlanc.
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 Because it's French, right? Yeah. Nicole is from Louisiana. What city are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Gonzales, which is just south of Baton Rouge along I-10 between Baton Rouge and New Orleans.
Okay. I even like the way you say New Orleans.
The way I say it.
How do you say Louisiana?
Louisiana.
Okay, so I'm doing it right. Okay. You
Yeah.
know how some people say
Yeah.
have different
Yeah.
ways
And
of
Louisiana's like, I'm sure any other state. But for us, every little section has their own subculture and they do pronounce things differently. Some places are more country, some places are more the term we use is cooney. If you live along the water, you're considered a river rat or a coonass, which is not a derogatory term for us.
yeah.
You'll see people driving around with their bumper stickers, coonass and proud. But anyway, it's because of the broken French and English, they tend to actually speak faster. They don't have a drawl, and it's very hard. Even when I lived off and came back, I needed some practice to understand what my cousins were saying because they was going by a million miles a minute. And I was like having to catch up to that dialect,
Uh-huh.
before I could get back in the groove. Because traveling, I've had to slow it down and I make sure to enunciate clearly and try not to use ain't and y'all all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's nothing wrong with it. For me, I was in healthcare and people that I worked with, physicians and whatever, they assumed my brain didn't function as well because my mouth was saying those type words with that type accent.
Right.
So that was the assumption that they made. And so I was perfectly capable of doing a lot of things, and they were just assuming that I wasn't. And so that was just another internal dialogue that I had. I'm like, Nicole, if you want more respect for who you are and what you're capable of, maybe not talk like you're from the bayou, the swamp. And so I articulate differently now because I've traveled all over the world. But if I get tired or I have a daiquiri,
Yeah.
that effort falls to the wayside.
If I get tired or if I have a daiquiri, I love it. Well, I'm from South Georgia, very, very South Georgia, and I have got a lot of family in North Florida and in South Georgia, but yeah, not wealthy, not the wealthy people, but
Yeah, yeah.
I say wealth in life school
Good
knowledge,
people. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
worked on tobacco farms.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you
I'm
know,
familiar with that area. My kids, their dad, and all his family is in Statesboro. And
okay.
so, and I spent a lot of time there. I lived there for a while, so it's like a second home. And um, I always find different ways of life whenever I go there.
Yes.
And I usually appreciate it. It's funny because in Statesboro with Georgia Southern, everybody that all the locals are like, oh my God, this traffic is so bad. The students are back in. They don't know how to drive. And I'm
That's like
like,
us here in Athens, Yeah,
and
which
I'm
is
coming from like Houston or, somewhere out west. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what traffic is.
yeah. And what
Like
we
you just
say
have
here in
to,
Athens, like I'll say, like this is getting as bad as Atlanta.
yeah, yeah.
And
If
we
I
just
want
love it when the
traffic,
students are gone and we can get parking downtown and go get a table at a restaurant like
yeah,
that.
yeah, same, same.
Uh-huh.
So it's like that, and
Mhm.
it's like that everywhere. It really is,
Yeah.
but I think I notice it more because they're louder about it. They vocalize that more.
Oh
But anyway,
yeah.
good people. I wouldn't trade my time there for all the tea in China, like they say.
No. Whenever my dad got a job when I was little, I think I was 12. We moved from Albany
Oh, Benny.
up to Buford near Atlanta for his job.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember and then we moved. We were only there like 6 months, and we moved to Madison, Georgia, which is the antebellum town, the one
Yeah.
that Sherman didn't burn,
Yeah.
supposedly. but we live there, and my family down in South Georgia would say, things like, well, we'll never see y'all again. You're up there in Atlanta. Like it was like
Like people go
another,
and they never return.
yeah.
The roads are only one way to Atlanta.
Yeah. I will say most people that move out of Albany, Georgia, don't really move back, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But I carry all that with me, and I love like
Yeah.
my family down there. They're just priceless,
Yeah.
and I always know that you can depend on, those are the ones you can really depend on, the good old,
Yep.
good old
Yeah.
souls. Yeah.
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 That's exactly how I see it too.
Yeah.
Steady as an oak, and um the same, trials and tribulations come along their way. They just handle it with peace and ease, and
Yep.
get on the porch and shuck peas. That's what we
Oh
used to do
yeah.
at the time.
That's what we did too. That's what we
Yeah.
did too. I grew up with
And talk and talk and talk and talk.
uh-huh.
And yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's therapy now. That's what we
Yes, it
call
is.
therapy.
Yes, it is. I'd love to get back to that, really. I say that, with this pickle business. I mean, I kind of created a monster. At first, it was just, maybe 6 cases of pickles a week. And now it's like, it's like 250 cases a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so I'm tired of looking at beans.
I bet.
And okra and everything. So,
Who else
but
needs
yeah.
some therapy? Come handle these beans for us.
Uh-huh. Have a lot of people sometimes will reach out to me and say, do you need any help? I'd love to come and help you. But I'm like, I don't think they realize like what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
Like it's
They
not
might,
one little bowl, of it's
that you
not
can
just
just
one
take your
bucket.
time with.
Yeah. And hurry up. We got to get this out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I just wanted everybody to kind of meet you, like for who you are, like your childhood self, where you
Yeah.
come from. And then I want to go into like, wow, like,
Okay.
yeah, there's been
Yeah.
a lot going on with Nicole in the past year.
Yeah. Most of my adult life, I went in the military when I was 18. I enlisted. I was the only one in my family that had any aspirations of going to college. And so my parents had not prepared for that. And they're like, well, you're on your own. Figure out how to take care of that. And so I went in the military, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So the recruiters thought it would be a good thing for just to become a medic and kind of figure out, fine tune from there. And I did. And it was the best decision I ever made. Let me turn this alarm off. My alarm to record with Angie. I didn't go anywhere fantastical. I really wanted to go overseas, and I wanted to see the world and all that. But growing up in South Louisiana, and basically you got summer for 9 months out of the year. And I didn't know, when I was 18 years old and left here, I didn't know every place wasn't hot and miserable like that. And so I ended up getting stationed in Kansas, and had experienced 4 seasons for the first time in my life. And I was like, this place is awesome.
That
And
reminds me, years ago, one of my aunts lives down in Jasper, Florida. It's an area right below Valdosta, right over the state line. And I remember one year I sent her a box of fall leaves, just fall leaves, because even
you
there,
never
like
get to
they don't
see
really
them.
get the 4 seasons. So sometimes when
No.
I'm thinking of like moving to Florida, I remind myself of that. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
miss the
And
seasons.
that craving for 4 seasons, a true fall, a true spring, all of that came from an inner place, because nobody else in my family was interested in that. For my mom, she was cold if it was under 70, and so she was really just perfectly fine with it being hot and humid. That's all she ever knew. And anyway, I kept thinking, no, there's got to be more to this world, this life than this. And so every place that I went, I kind of had that I always said I had a gypsy soul. I'd be like, okay, so I see this and I've experienced this, and now I'm ready to move on and experience the next thing. And so I've done that throughout my life. I got out of the military after 6 years, and a couple years later went by, and I ended up going to nursing school. And then, so I've been a registered nurse for about 21 years. And so in healthcare, I started in 1991. I graduated nursing school in 2004. And so I was entrenched in all things Western medicine. And I had always felt like it was a calling to be a nurse. I always said that I found who I was in that profession because I truly was there for the patients. Was always a patient advocate and always wanted to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, and help heal and to help people feel better about whatever situation they were in. And all things considered, it was not a bad profession to be in, but over time you could see how things were really, for me, just one thing I thought was an isolated incident. As I started to be a travel nurse and I went around the countryside, I went from California to Georgia. It's the same everywhere, and it really, really opened my eyes. And
Yeah.
so, but then I felt stuck, like most people are. They're in a profession, a degreed profession. I was, had um my registered nurse license that I really had to take care of and protect, and that meant a whole another level of responsibility. But so at a certain point, you feel like, how do I go back and change this if I'm not happy with this, And so I tried different hats, as nurses do many times, and was so unfulfilled. And it became more of the norm that we got, assaulted. I worked ER and critical care. We got assaulted all the time, and was always getting yelled at and screamed at. Was never good enough, and it just, as an empath, we want to help, and so we're just this open vessel, and we just take in all the stuff, right? And at that time, I had no idea that I should meter that I should protect my vessel,
Yes.
and that I mattered too. It didn't ever occur to me. And so, yeah, more than 20 years of that. And then I got diagnosed with breast cancer in 2009.
Mm.
And it was two forms of cancer at the same time, one aggressive and one kind of garden variety. I say it's more of a common one. And then again in 2017. And so when you go through Western healthcare as a patient,
Yeah.
it's a lot. I mean, it's another level of understanding of what we do in the name of science and in the name of healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say there's so many blessings that came out of that cancer diagnosis, and there really, really are. Um, and one of them is that I became a much better human being, and I became a much better nurse advocate for the patients because I had been on the other side.
Right.
And I no longer did things just because the doctor ordered them. I went and, which I was never really that makeup anyway. I always challenged. I was always that one. But I would say, this doesn't make sense if they're going to be stuck for, blood and blood cultures in 20 minutes. Can we not just give them one poke with a needle and do it all at one time? Can I not coordinate that? I mean, and so it was just
Yeah.
little things like that, my patients loved me, and the doctors were like, you're such a pain in the ass, because I was the speed bump along their way of their
Right.
12-hour shift. But many, many times I helped because I did have great experience and I did know what I was doing and I was smart. I helped them be better physicians if they would just listen, because they were moving so fast, they were missing stuff. And so that's the part of it that I thought I would never be able to walk away from, because that was the part that fed my soul. That even if it was just one interaction in a 12-hour shift with one patient that I connected with, it really filled my cup. And then 2020 happened.
Mm.
And I was actually working in East Georgia, and they made some cutbacks because of everything. And I went back to traveling, and I ended up in Gainesville, Georgia, and I think it's Northeast Medical Center up there.
Uh-huh.
And I was working COVID ICUs, and all of us, I feel like I can say the group of people that I worked with, we all answer the call, right? Nobody was there because we had to be or anything like that, you know. I had been let go on my job. I could have got on assistance or whatever the case was, but I felt the call to help my brothers and sisters like I always did. And we all felt like we were doing the best we could with what we had. And it, before too long, it started to become glaringly obvious to me that we were not.
Right.
And I was a part of a lot of, you know, conversations where I was saying, why exactly are we doing this? And there was never any good answer, honestly. There was like, you know, this is the best thing we have, or, you know, what would you suggest? You know, that kind of stuff. And so I really couldn't wait to get out of that environment. So I did a 3 month, or I think I did actually 4 months in COVID ICU, and then I got out and went to Texas. I went back to ER, and it was just a different level. And so again, holding patients all the time, and in the ER, not having beds to admit them to, and just, you know, the whole feeling jaded by the profession, because they're always asking you to do more with less, and then making
Yes.
responsibility more for doing not enough.
Yeah, my best friend is she works in a assisted living, not
Yeah.
assisted living. What am I trying to say? The what do you call it? Um she's a physical therapist at
Oh, physical therapy assistant.
yes. And yeah, she says they'll have her do 16 patients in a day.
Mhm.
So that doesn't give her enough time. They don't want her to get overtime. They don't want to
No.
pay her for, for the time and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
So so she has to try to get 16 people, just
Yeah.
see them
Yeah.
in that, span of
And
8 hours.
it's hard because you're in it and you feel the pressure of the families and the patient and the
Yeah.
facility administration and your supervisors and, you know, everybody that you work with, all your peers or whatever. And I think for myself, that's what took me so long to recognize that it was in such a toxic environment.
Yeah.
And so I kept trying to get myself where I was at a place where it was less harmful for me to exist as a nurse, because I couldn't conceive of my life in any other way. I had always been the nurse. That was a label I had put on myself. I never really identified with anything else as much as I did that. So before the shutdowns and the pandemic and all that really got riled up, MD Anderson was recruiting me. Then they had a hiring freeze. Well, then it kind of picked back up, and they called me and they said, you know, we got jobs that we're going to be posting. You know, we'd love to get you on board. And it's like the job, right? The thing that I had been asking for on one hand had been provided to me, you know, Monday through Friday, no weekends, no nights, no holidays, 8-hour days, good
Yeah.
benefits, like all the things. Had I not known what I knew, it checked all the boxes to have the retirement gig. Like that would have been the place that I would have retired from.
Yeah.
And knowing what I know now, that was exactly why I ended up right there, because that was the ultimate test. You know, source creator was saying, okay, Nicole, this is it. We've given you in your path the thing that would make being part of the problem very easy.
Hmm.
What are you going to do with this now? Because that friction was there. And it's so easy to see whenever you're working 12-hour shifts in the ER on nights, or you're traveling around the country trying to chase money, you know, and jobs and location, and just not being good to your body, not being good to yourself. So I started to, and you know, I was already internalizing everything. So anyway, I started to really, really go within, because I had found Bryce. I found some other people, but Bryce was really the integral one, because she sparked the knowledge in me that I needed to go look further. You know, that
Yeah.
I needed to look within, and
Yeah.
I
Like
needed to do that work.
I don't just, I found her too. And I didn't just believe everything. I
Yeah,
researched it for myself. And then also we're going to get into this, like my higher self,
yeah. And I
you know,
knew. growing up Catholic, I've touched on that before. Like I left that when I was in 7th grade, and I knew that wasn't for me. But my spiritual journey started then because I knew internally, I knew there was something that I could align with. I just hadn't found it yet, and so I had that guidance, throughout my life. But it really kind of all started to come together. And I've said many times it was like that piece of the puzzle finally floated right into place, and everything was right before me. And all I had to do was exercise my free will choice
Yeah.
to take my power back and to heal myself and to put myself before all the people that had shamed me, blamed me, told me this is what I needed to do. I needed to suck it up for my teammates, like the world needs you, like all the things. But when I was crying in the car in the morning before I went in to the very best job I ever had, and couldn't wait for lunch because I needed to go out to the car and have a good cry. And I was only working 8 hours, like imagine if it was a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
And so I kept saying, I don't know how I'm going to provide for myself. I don't know how, like, I don't have that plan. I've been single, divorced, whatever. But really, the only person that ever took care of me was me. And that's not to say I need any kind of pity or anything like that. That's not the thing. I just didn't have a better plan. Like, I hadn't planned on walking away from the job that I just started. It just really all came down on me at that time to make a better decision for me. And that was that pivotal point. And so I pivoted and I said, for once in my life, I'm going to actually take a step in my faith. I have asked for years, God, show me where you want me to be, use me, wherever that is, and whatever that looks like, I will do it. I said that for years, Angie.
Yeah.
I said it in quiet moments, and I said it in moments of desperation. It was my mantra. And all of a sudden, I had that opportunity to do that. I had always had it, but it really came to the forefront. And so I said, for once, I'm going to really walk the talk. And I walked away. I took time to really make my decision, and then I left. I say I left the career that betrayed me because I really did not ever, ever, ever think that I was part of a problem. But it became glaringly clear during after 2020 that we were definitely part of a bigger, not benevolent agenda. And I really couldn't, in my soul, be a part of that. And so I honored that and I walked away, and without having a plan, because you know what? It didn't matter how many plans I'd ever made, they always got blown up anyway, because they're not my plans.
Right.
They're sources' plans.
Yeah.
And opening yourself up, truly opening yourself up to the wonders that have been set before you so that you don't have the blinders you put on yourself to not see, was vital for me. And so I just gave it up. And I said, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea how I'm going to take care of myself. I have no idea if I'm going to end up homeless. But by damn, I would rather be homeless and have a sovereign soul and be able to look myself in the mirror and not cry than do that, whatever that is. And so I literally gave it up. And just before that time, I had been hearing, start a YouTube channel. Start a YouTube channel on biblical truth. Start a YouTube channel on biblical truth. I mean, could not have been further from my wheelhouse if you said, hey, what's the wildest thing you think you ever might not do? Like that would have been it. And I finally started it just a couple of months before I walked away. And it's not it's a labor of divinity. I get led to cover topics for the collective. I get led on things that help my soul, and I think immediately, like, if this helps me, it's going to help others. So I just share it out, and so people can actually see that journey that I took.
I think that's exactly what we're supposed to do. I mean, just share who we are on the inside and our walk, like our ups and downs. I mean, it always helps other people. I hear this all the time, just on my little Facebook. I've always kind of shared kind of the ups and downs of everything there for years. And I'll run into people and they'll start crying when they see me. They're like, you have no idea, like, how you've helped me. And I'm like, me? Like, what?
Because I think culturally, it's so we're so uncomfortable sharing, like in reality. Like
Yeah.
I'm sharing on this side of the computer screen and it feels one way, but if you were standing in front of me, it would feel different. Even it's not even a trust thing, it's just an energy thing, and
Yeah.
it's the way that we all grew up. Like hold that in, like don't let people know
Yeah.
your weakness and don't show them, where they can hurt you. And then that's a total matrix,
Yeah.
mind warp. And so I began to heal myself and I shared that with others. And I had over this entire time, I'm coming up on a year, I've had like one negative comment on any of my videos. And I have almost 50 videos now. And it's because it's my frequency, it's my I'm authentic. I don't script anything.
Yeah.
Usually whenever I'm speaking only from my experience. You take it, you leave it, whatever. But if it resonates with you, it rings a bell for a reason.
Hmm.
And that is then your free will choice to acknowledge it and do something with it, or keep doing the same thing you've been doing and expecting a different outcome. And that's sanity, right?
That is insanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is exactly why I wanted to talk with you today, is because I resonate with you. Like I
Yeah.
feel, I've watched a few of your videos before, and also we're friends on Twitter, and just
Yeah.
I see what you share, and you've in the past have commented and helped me out. Like if I was having a rough day or something, you kind of given me some positivity, just kind of like, I got you, girl,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
think that's
yeah.
important. We find a like-hearted community because we don't all live in the same geographical area, but we're in the same heart space.
Yeah.
And that means we can be together whenever we want to or need to be together. We're there for each other in that heart space. And that has made time and space and miles irrelevant. My family, my soul family is right here with me all the time. And they are literally around the globe,
Yes.
but every one of them is just right here.
I know, I've had people like, I'm like, turn off your television, turn off your television. You don't need to watch that stuff. And then I've had some of my friends will say, well, how will I know what's going on? And I'm like, listen, if I want to know what's going on in, England, Australia, wherever, I ask my friends on Twitter, ask them, or I just go and see what they're reporting, because they are the boots on the ground. Like
Yeah.
they're actually really there. And I've said this since 2009. I would say, oh, I already knew about that because my friend over in, such and such was talking about it. She actually videoed a little bit of that, today or whatever, or
Uh-huh.
yesterday. And people were like, I don't do that Twitter thing. Like, well,
To
you
each their
keep
own.
doing your television.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And I'm surrounded by people that really they plan their lives around what's coming on TV
Yeah.
and
I
the
used to. I used
information
to get
that's
up
coming
every
from the
day,
news.
turn on that news, the morning news. I used to love the way that sounded as the Today Show started.
Yeah.
The music, the intro. Like,
Oh, we've come a long way, haven't we?
yes. And I mean, I lived for Regis and Kathy Lee, and then it was Regis
Yeah.
and Kelly, I'm like, oh my gosh. Silly, just silly. But no, we all go, it's just steps. And also, like my
Yeah.
daughter, we were talking on the way to school today, and some song we were listening to, I can't remember what it was, that brought up a memory. I said, Rosie, do you remember whenever I used to get up every morning and do my Bible devotion? And she said, yeah. And I said, you would even like she would bring me, she was a little bitty thing. She would bring me my Bible, set it on the arm of the sofa, right where I sat. She'd bring me my coffee and my little
Oh,
paper, my tablet, and she just laughed because now all my Bibles, I still have them, but they're just they're in a cabinet. They used to be
everybody
out.
processes that differently. Yeah, everybody
Yeah, I mean, I grew
processes.
up not being able to put anything on top of my Bible in my bedroom. Just
Yeah, and so when I went through my the next phase, I think, of my awakening, because I was really awoke already about the time that I left work. Like I was really aware. I think that's why it really, really, hurt me to do that, to keep doing that. And so anyway, the thing that I had never really done much for me was my own shadow work. I had done such a good, um, lifetime of giving, 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 giving. But I had never it was very uncomfortable for me to put myself first. That's not who I had ever been. And I think a lot of us say that, I had always, like I said before, I identified as the nurse and then the mom. And then on occasion I had a husband here and a husband there, but whatever. I was always giving and never concerned with, I just was like, I'll be fine. As long as I can get out and put one foot in front of the other, I'll be fine. And I've literally thought that way for decades, And when I forced myself to sit still, and I didn't have another project that I was planning, because again, I was not the one making the plan. I had to sit and listen for it to come into me. That's whenever I realized that, number one, the voice in my head was my higher self trying to get my attention for years. And I had been telling it to shut up, basically, Yeah. I even the events that do in my life were, lessons to teach me how to really go within. And every time I failed that lesson came right back around again. That's the beauty of lessons. And that's why souls have to come do this life thing again, because you keep giving opportunities, you keep getting opportunities. And whenever your mortal form wears out, your soul goes back and you basically have a sit down with source and like, okay, so before you went down there, this is what you were supposed to learn. And you learned like half of this. So pick your next place,
Yeah.
because you got to go back down and round out these lessons. And when I finally came to understand all that, it was a solace for me, because I had had such shitty things occur to me in my life. I realized then at that point it was happening for me, and it
Right.
kept happening for me. And even though I screwed it up, source is always there and always forgiving, and say she's gonna get it. Like, eventually she's gonna get it, and I'm gonna give her another opportunity. And so it shifted everything. It shifted everything. My perception of how I looked at myself, of how I evaluated the hurts and the pains and the shadows and all that kind of stuff. And so working through all those layers, where I no longer felt like the victim, but I felt like the chosen one, that I was, special enough to keep getting these lessons. Nobody in the higher realms gave up on Nicole, but even though Nicole might have been giving up on her, And so it was all just a journey, and it is a journey for every single person. And it's very individual, because your life is not my life. But whenever you start to speak to someone who's gone through this journey, you find the synchronicities, and you find that there are similarities in childhood, there's similarities in young adulthood, there's similar, like in every season of life, there's these similarities. And it's
I
that
think we're
sacred
about the same
geometry.
age too. I think we're
I'm about to be 50.
me too, in
Yeah.
July.
Mine's in March. So yeah. And so, and that's that woven golden thread through the tapestry of our life. We keep coming around to have the opportunity to make a better choice for ourselves. And that was a real hard lesson for me, but I think I finally got it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. How do you know? So let's back up.
So there's some scientific things that are true, and they interwoven with celestial knowledge and esoteric knowledge. And so we have two DNA strands that are recognized by Western science, right? And that's that double helix strand that people see symbolizing DNA. But we have 10 strands that are not recognized. Science calls them junk DNA. They're latent DNA, but it's your crystalline DNA matrix that is given to you as the blueprint of your soul when you're incarnate. And so the solar CMEs coming in, the energies that we all speak about, being out in nature, doing yoga, having a very inner standing that you have a good clear flow of energy. Those are the things that activate that crystalline DNA. And so you can organically activate that crystalline DNA and work through your whole life and get to where you have to have 10 of 12 strands activated to speak to your true higher self. If you don't, you can still have a communion with your guides and whatnot, but it's kind of filtered, I like to say, because you still have blockages. The energy is not a straight flow between you, your higher self, and source. And so growing up Catholic, was talked about the Holy Spirit, and it was, the trilogy, and Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? Well, they in many religions, they make you work for that Holy Spirit, right? That they make you act like Holy Spirit is this unattainable object that you just can't ever really grasp. When in reality, it's inside you your whole time. The Holy Spirit is your higher self.
Right.
And to attain that is to do inner work to clear out that energy flow so that we basically have like a pillar of energy that comes straight from source down into our spirit and down to Mother Gaia. And Mother Gaia is the soul of Earth. And they're sentient beings, and they have feelings and emotions and thoughts, and just like we do. For Mother Gaia, her avatar is Earth.
Earth.
For me, my avatar is Nicole that you see. Source is just an immense power and light. There is no form. And so to have that communion, I call it the communion of my soul, my spirit, Holy Spirit, my higher self, and source. It is uninterrupted, unfiltered, unmitigated. Nobody messes with it. And you don't need somebody, that's what I say in my videos. You don't need somebody with a book in a certain building, in a certain place, at a certain time to dangle the carrot in front of you and tell you that you're never going to be good enough to get it. It's inside you the entire time.
Yep.
And so a lot of people, so I went through my journey and I figured out that I'm a starseed. And then I had found an Ascension guide, but he actually found me, and that's that frequency thing, right? So
Can we back up for a second and tell everyone how you found out you're a starseed?
I'm telling you. So
Okay.
I didn't know, but I suspected, because if you Google what is a starseed, and there are these characteristics, I kind of had all of it. And I had this knowing about things, but I couldn't explain it. And throughout my life, I had been told that's not real. Like, you're just like, you're having a moment, kind of a thing. And so I really felt nudged to look into that once I left the matrix, really,
Yes.
and I was doing that inner work. And so the more I aligned with who I was as a soul and who I was as a human being with source, and I started doing that work, and I was reading the Sophia Code and rereading the Sophia Code and doing those activations and whatnot. I was on Twitter, and there's a lot of celestial and spiritual beings on there that are like us, and we were put here to awaken the masses and show them there is hope and light and all the things. And so I messaged one of them, and like, how many people message me all the time, like, how do I know? And when I know, how do I figure out which kind? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And she was very like in her own element and didn't have a whole lot of advice to give. And that's a true statement. It's an individual journey. That was her position. Like, you have to figure it out on your own. And I don't know if I even made a comment or not, but someone else who ended up being my first Ascension guide saw it and commented and said, "You're obviously Arcturian." And I thought, how do you know? Like, how do you know? And so then that was my real aha moment, because it was someone who was connected to the lineage that I'm from, and the all the things, and I was actually part of his mission to find me, help me heal and activate my DNA so that I can get all these downloads. And so that's how it started. So once the healing was an energetic healing. It is an energetic healing similar to Reiki, but on a more celestial power level. So it's like really, really strong. And it's sent to your energy signature. It was sent to my energy signature. And and I've now been trained to do the same thing for people. And so we can see how many chakras are blocked, and we can see that they have these etheric negative cords and attachments to hurt feelings and negative people in their lives, and that they have etheric distortions, we'll call them. And so they want, all of those things are interrupting your energy flow. They're caps limiting your power. And so when those are removed, you have a clear flow of energy, and that really increases your frequency. That's what is able to increase your vibe. And you can filter now the energy because it's your free flow. So whenever I encounter someone, they say, well, how do I know if I'm talking to my higher self? I ask through my abilities. It's claircognizant, which is knowing without context, and clairvoyance, which is seeing without context. And so I ask, does so-and-so have 10 of 12 strands of DNA activated? And if the answer is no, then they're talking to a guide, which is fine. Mm-hmm. If the answer is yes, then they could be talking to their higher self. But the distinction is, like, my first husband was killed in an accident shortly after we were married. And so that was in 94. And he's been a guide of mine my entire life. But I never really felt a connection to him until I got to a certain point, which was that DNA being activated, to have that cord, that positive cord, and attached connection, where I felt like if I had a thought, or he gave me a thought, like I could really feel a connection. And so you can have those type connections as you ascend. And ascension is a consciousness thing. And then when you get to the certain point, then you can have, the whole ball of wax, like I say. And so people say, well, I talk to myself all the time. How do I know I'm not talking to my higher self? And, your higher self is very neutral. Your higher self is really no agenda, yes or no, in your highest and best good all the time. So if you're getting a lot of sassiness and a lot of attitude and whatever, that's a higher level being, but it's not your higher self. Right. It's more of a guide. It's more of someone who is influencing their personality or whatever. Your higher self doesn't really have a personality. Your higher self is the all-knowing of your soul. So all of your previous lives and what is in your future is known, and in you, whatever's in your highest and best good to know, you get a yes or you get a no. You might get a little bit more conversation, but it's not ever, malicious or hurtful or didn't have another agenda. That your higher self is there for your highest and best good, period. Mm-hmm. And it's just between you and source creator, who most people call God.
Yeah, a lot of people call God. And that's okay.
Yeah. We say source creator because and you may have heard people say before, Father, Mother, God.
Yes.
So source creator is the creator of all things, and Mother Sophia is the creatrix of all life. And so together they created and seeded us.
Yeah.
Everything. So that's why there is that. And so I specifically ask questions to Mother Sophia, and I specifically ask questions to source. Yeah. It is. But before I close my eyes at night, my gratitude goes to Father, Mother, God.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Me too. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't used to. I even had coffee cups made a few years back. I used to give out to people, and on the front they said, like, Fickle Chickle Sunrise on the front, and then on the back they had this little saying about, anyway, him, like.
Yeah. Anyway. I remember at one point in my life I was real distraught because I couldn't remember the bedtime prayer the Catholics are supposed to say.
Wow.
And it had been so many years, but I was just hungry for communion, for that conversation and that connection. And I eventually it did come back to me. And then for a long, long time, I was okay saying it because it was, I didn't know how to pray. Right. Yeah. They make it out like you have to have this, memorized text, and you have to go through this, go through that, go through that. And that is not the case at all. It is about your intentions, and you just speak your intention. And when literally I can think something and never verbalize it, never write it down or anything, and I get the answer.
Yeah,
And
that's a
so,
prayer. My grandmother taught
yeah.
me that whenever I was very young. I would say, I don't like praying in public. And I don't really think anybody should have to do that.
Mhm.
Like, all right, your turn.
Right.
But
Right.
I remember when I was little, I was like, Grandma, I don't really know what to say. I don't like praying in public. And she said, oh, just close your eyes and breathe and just think.
Hmm.
That's all
Yeah.
you have to do.
It's really more of a conversation, and it's
Yeah.
really more about your intent.
I
And
remember going
sometimes,
to a Wednesday night group whenever I was a child with one of my friends from school, and it was her church, and they had us hold hands, and we were supposed to go around in a circle and pray, like say a part of a prayer. When it got to me, I said, see, I knew way back. I went, pass. I just said pass and like squeezed the hand next to me, like your turn.
that's awesome. That's
I was
awesome. Yeah.
probably like 9.
Yeah. That's completely
Mm-mm.
awesome. Yeah, it's more of a conversation. And even if you don't know what to say, or, some people, they don't have a great vocabulary. Some people say one word and they really mean something completely different. Source knows your intent. Your words don't have to be perfect. Your vernacular does not have to be correct. Source knows your intent and your heart. And so even if that's what it means whenever you say, Source, you know my heart, and you know it's in my highest and best good. I open myself up to whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
There's still a message sent and received in that moment. And for me, searching my whole life and knowing that there was that connection out there and just not knowing how to obtain it. And of course, I tried out all the churches, right? You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
um, and I pulled things from each and every one of them. Some were lessons of what to do, and some were lessons of what to do, and who to be and who not to be, or whatever.
Right.
Um, but in doing that, I also could recognize what felt good to my soul and what felt like I should run the other direction. And whenever I started having this conversation with Source, and I started to realize that I had so much support and love, and it was unapologetic and full of compassion and full of forgiveness for all the shit I've done in my life. It was never an issue, only for me. As soon as that happened, I got such peace and calm and comfort in my soul, because there is no judgment.
Yeah,
And
there
that's
are no mistakes, only
no,
lessons.
no. Yeah, and
Right?
people say, "Oh, well, I thought so and so was bad. How can they be good now?" Because our God forgives. Source
Mhm.
forgives.
Mhm.
We may make a wrong turn here or there, but the light is always available to anyone, even, you know, demons and murderers and rapists, and they've been shitty their whole life. They've been lost their whole life. In the last hour of their life, if they decide they want to know the love, the unconditional love of Source and the light, they go.
Yeah,
And some people may be like, no, that can't be. They have to be punished for their sin. Well, first of all, sin is just that you've lost your way. And
right.
when someone loses their way, our hope should be that they find their way
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
And when they find their way back to Source, who are we to say they are not worthy? It's not for us to decide. We don't get to have judgment. That's another part of ascension. So if you're full of your ego and you're judging people all the time, I really don't care how many Bible verses you have memorized. You are not there. You have a lot of work to do,
I was never good at memorizing.
because it's not a thing. It doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter.
And I always just felt so bad about that. I just never could memorize.
Oh,
And,
don't feel bad. It's just that
well, I
shame.
don't
That's just
anymore.
that shame, guilt, blame
Uh-huh.
mentality of the church.
Yeah.
And I don't, there's a lot of really, really, really good people that go and give their energy and their praise and their devotion and all that in those buildings with that
Yeah.
being their focus. And I don't want to take that from them. I just say, let's use your energy and your power and your devotion to heal you, the inner
You.
child of you, the soul of you, and look to have a conversation with source creator on your own terms. Don't let someone else dictate to you that you're not worthy, because that is a lie.
Yeah, it is.
That is a lie. Even on my worst day, when I felt like I was not deserving of anything, I was always deserving of his love and Mother Sophia's love. And that is such a comfort to me now, because I know that the indoctrination of everything that I grew up with was just out of control. It was just out of a hope to have control over
Control.
many, many, many people to do what they want, so that they can funnel that energy in the direction that they wanted it to go in.
I've always told my children, just there is nothing you can ever do that will make me not love you, because that's
Yeah,
the way I've always wanted to have that kind of love from a parent or
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
source.
And we do. And I
Mhm.
think that whenever we embody that, that is the embodiment of our Father, Mother, God, And so it's very, very important that people understand, if they're on this journey, it's full of highs and lows. And I have, my trajectory of learning has been like a rocket, because I went from the indoctrination of Catholicism and all the other religions to realizing that none of that really mattered to who my soul is. And then whenever, like I said before, the truth is so much more beautiful and magical and mystical, than the lies that we've been told.
Yeah.
That's a very, very small, in a box, rigid way of living. And to free yourself from that confine and those walls, and to
Well, and
just
we've heard
open
it since we
yourself.
were little children. The truth will set you free, and
And I say it all the
we
time.
thought the truth was the church.
Yeah.
Church.
We were told that the truth is what we were told the truth
Told.
was.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And that's what I say. I've said my whole life, I can respect the truth, but I can't respect a lie. And the truth for me on this journey really was a gut punch. There were several days that I was unable to sleep, and I really felt
Yes.
like I had been kicked in the stomach, and I was sick to my stomach, and I was like a zombie, because I didn't know which end was up.
Mhm.
But that's part of the friction, and that's part of the process of self-discovery, and realizing that all the noise that you have carried around, and all the baggage that you've carried around, and the guilt and the shame and all that, does not matter for your soul.
No.
And whenever I came through that and had the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, um, I no longer had those feelings, and I was no longer confused, and I no longer wondered. And to me, that's very comforting, because there's so many people that are full of faith,
Yeah.
and they question everything. And it's because their soul is empty, because they're really, really, truly not at peace, because they don't know who they are, because
Yeah.
they have not been allowed the freedom to discover who they are without shame, blame, guilt, all the
Yeah.
things, and doing it in silence. That's why Bryce's grandmother had a book about reincarnation hidden under the
That's
bed,
right.
you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, without going into too much detail, I mean, I had to put myself in a different bedroom. I had to, because I need space to be able to feel what I'm feeling without judgment and
Yeah,
without
yeah,
a blockage from
yeah,
others. Let's just say others. So
yeah.
it's difficult. It's very difficult. I spent in the beginning of this, it was like 2019. I spent days just laying in the bed, laying on the floor, you
Yeah.
know,
There were times
crying
where
in the
I would
shower.
there were times where I'd be at work and I'd be like, how can people walk around and not know this?
Yeah, I
How
mean,
are
it's
they
like,
functioning? I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just literally putting one foot in front of the other, and it's just so hard for me. And so I feel I have empathy now for those, but that was a long time ago. That was a really
yeah,
long time, and I've had all this time to go through this journey and make mistakes and learn more lessons and have the miracles that I've been able to see, and all that. And so now I feel like I think time is really short before like the world like flips and we actually are really truly anchored in Christ consciousness with this 5D new earth and everything's great. but we have to go through a lot of friction to get there, right? And I think that squeeze is getting a little bit harder for
Yeah.
some, and that's why you're having these people that are popping up now and they're saying, wait a minute, like I had some under tremblings that all this stuff didn't make sense, but now I really know, and they feel this push of desperation for information. And so
Yep.
I have such empathy for them because they want it all like right now, and you really got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
You really
Because even
do.
whenever certain people will ask me questions, I get so excited. I'm like, okay, where do I start? Um, where do I start? Well, then it turns into like,
Information overload.
yeah, and then it's like,
Yeah, I know. I'm guilty.
crap.
I'm guilty. So now I start saying, you're going to have to tell me to tap the brakes because I get super excited about this because this
Yeah.
is like the real deal living stuff here. Like this
Yeah.
is the meat of why we're here. This is the purpose for our life. And I
Yes.
get very excited about that. And they're like, okay. And about, I'd say probably about 80-20. 80% of the people are like, give it to me, give me more. I've been searching, searching, searching. And
Mm-hmm.
20% are like, yeah, I think I'm good with the misery that I've become comfortable with. And I'm just going to live here for a while until I
Mm-hmm.
decide whether this is something for me or not. And I'm sitting here thinking, stories is telling me it's for you. Like you just got to wake up. But
Right.
everybody has to do it on their own timetable.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's yeah, that whole Jesus thing where Jesus went, and got alone, that story, whatever. We all need that for a little while. Like we've got to get alone with ourselves and figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, you
One
know,
thing I
s-
had to stop doing is I always had music playing. Always. It didn't matter where
Mhm.
I was. The kitchen, the car, the bathroom, it didn't matter. I always had music playing, which is great in theory. But the downside is if you always have music playing, you can't hear your
Yourself.
guides talk to you.
Yeah.
You can't hear your higher self come in with a message. You can't hear source. And
Yeah,
that's
I
why by
can't
the
stand
time,
noise anymore. I can't stand.
yeah,
I can play along for a little while, like it's fun, and I have some playlists on Spotify that I'll listen to sometimes, certain moods, like sitting on the porch with other people. Maybe
yeah,
I'm drowning them out. I don't know. But for the most part, like I won't even realize I've gone through a whole day where with in complete silence. I
yeah.
love it. Yeah.
And it used to be, I used to say this all the time, like silence was deafening to me. Silence was really loud. Okay, but now I freaking know what I was hearing then was my ears ringing, and it was my pineal gland opening, and it was me, my higher self and source trying to get my attention, and I drowned it out with music,
Yep.
with the wrong frequency music,
Right.
not to mention that.
Exactly. That's another
So
whole topic.
yeah, it is. And so, in many, many ways, innocently, but as a product of the matrix that we live in, we are our own derailing. Like we derail our ascension all the time just by doing what we've been doing, not realizing that we are blocking out the sun, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're blocking out the messages. And
It
so,
makes me think of that Simon and Garfunkel song too,
yeah,
The Sound of Silence.
yeah,
Hello,
yeah.
darkness, my old friend. I
Hmm.
mean, makes
A
a lot of
lot
sense to
of
me.
the lyrics of songs from the 70s and 80s and 90s are
Hmm.
very, very profound. They're
Yeah.
very profound. And I used to see and ears to hear. And so now I hear things now and I'm like, holy shit, that's what that meant.
That's what it
Yeah, so
meant.
I think the journey is super fun and it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done a lot of things that, I've saved thousands of lives, not as an individual usually, but sometimes, but part of a team. But still, this is the healing that I'm doing. I'm helping people, discover their purpose on this planet. And I'm helping them realize that they are worthy of loving themselves and that they deserve all the good things. And there truly is magical things that happen to us every single day if we just allow ourselves to see it. And, and that is super fulfilling.
It
That
sounds
has,
to me like you are checking off every box
well,
on your soul contract.
I don't know if I will say I do get a lot of reinforcement from source that he's super proud. And, because we all have free will choice. And there's been some that have found themselves where I am and it's been too much. The energy is too much and and the pressure is too much or whatever. I do feel pressure in that I want to help as many people, and I want to have them know truth and the calm and the peace and the unconditional love of that all comes together. And so I get told to take a break. I get told you need to rest. You need to rest today. Don't record. Don't send out healing. Like, just rest. And I have intentions of resting, and then downloads start coming in inevitably, because I'll go outside in nature, get my feet on the ground, and I start talking to my guides, and they love to give me information. Well, once I get it, I have to act. Like, I don't sit on it. I'm just a channeler, and it just comes through, and I'm like, oh, I know what that means. I got to do this. I gotta share this.
It's exciting. It's
Yes,
exciting.
yes. And
It's so good to connect with you.
it doesn't ever feel like work. It doesn't feel like, the beat up work that I used to do to myself. It's so rewarding. And then at the end of the day, I put my feet up and, whatever. And I'm like, so Source, am I in trouble for not resting again? There's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's always tomorrow. And that's the thing, my intentions are good. And my decisions on a day-to-day basis now are between myself, my higher self, Source, Mother Sevilla. Like, it's a meeting. It's that morning meeting before you decide what you're going to do for the day. And so I do my meditation, and I ask for whatever messages are meant for me today, and they come in or they don't, whatever. And then that's how I go about my day. So I'm still at the point of not planning. And so the Matrix people are like, what do you mean you don't plan? Like, how do you not know what you're doing tomorrow? I'm like, well, I intend to do A, B, and C. But there's some things that are obviously happening in the world around me. And if that becomes more prevalent and I get called by Source to handle something, I'm going to do it. And so I know I give that up. I no longer have that white knuckle grip on my life. I have given that up. And so I show gratitude and love, and I'm super thankful for each day, and each day that I wake up and I think, okay, so I have more work to do, and I just go about it. But it never feels like work. I think work is a word I like to move away from, but I haven't been able to move away from it yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm very thankful that we've gotten to know each other. I remember back it's been a while, but I remember you and I would be commenting on Esoteric Atlanta's things like, and so I always saw your name there, my name there. We were always together right there. And then I think I won a thing, maybe you won a thing too, where I got to film with Bryce. You filmed with Bryce.
Well, you got chosen as a winner. She and I had just talked about doing a deep dive together. And so it just happened to be about the same time. We did that. And then I filmed a couple times with Stephanie, and then our paths kind of went separate ways. And I was doing other projects, they were doing other projects, and then we kind of converged and come back. But I found a lot of Source has given me my purpose and my mission, and part of it is to connect with starseeds and connect with light workers and way showers, and kind of guide them through what that means, because most people are like completely clueless, like, what are you talking about? And so when that was given to me, I'm like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, I don't understand. Like, that's not who I am in life. And Source is like, your frequency is going to attract them. You just keep putting your videos out there on biblical truth or whatever you feel moved to record on, and the people that hear you in your frequency, he said, even if you get all the words wrong, it's your frequency they're identifying with. And that's that frequency that you and I share. And so people comment on my videos and they're like, I don't even know how I found you, but I just feel this connection. And 9 times out of 10, they are, crew members, they're ground crew members or starseeds. And I start, tipping my toe in the water of giving them that information. And it's always so much fun to hear them say, I knew it. I knew I wasn't crazy. Like, I knew there was more to my life than what I had been doing. And that's just such an awesome thing. And so, he's been proven right time and time again.
Well, my password on my computer right here is soul family. And I just feel like you're part of my soul family. And
Oh,
um,
absolutely, we are.
mhm,
Absolutely.
yeah. I know it's funny. Like my daughter want to get on her, my husband want to use my laptop, and they're like, "What's the password?" I'm like, "Soul family." You wouldn't understand.
It's become a term that really gets thrown
I
around, I think,
know.
a
Yeah.
bit, but it does accurately describe
Mhm.
my connections that I've made, because it is on soul level, and we are family. And most of us, we find out that we've lived many, many lives together, and that's why we were connected again in this life,
Yeah.
for a bigger purpose. And so, yeah, I mean, I just think that we've all come through this amnesia life, and I always call Earth the gangster planet. And once you get to this point, we've all kind of been pushed, the ones that are supposed to be leading the way. We've been pushed to discover this about ourselves, so that when other people come behind us, they see that it's not the big scary thing that they've been
Right.
told their whole life, that it's good, and it resonates with their soul, and it's exactly what source chose them to do, and it's what they agreed to do, and like all the synchronicities of their life come together, and it's just this aha moment.
Yeah.
And you can't make it up. I don't have the ability to create something that's not there. Like, that was your plan, that was your path, and that was your life.
Mhm.
I'm just telling you what I see. I didn't, and they're like, you're right. It was in there the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you and I both were listening in on, what was it called? Enough is Enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a podcast.
I think
Um,
I don't know if he has other things called that, but that's on Telegram. That's his Telegram channel. Enough is
uh-huh.
enough. Yeah.
So we're listening to that yesterday and noticing that people were just having so many questions. So it's coming, people are coming in waves, souls are coming in
Yeah.
waves.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so like there were the first waves and then the
Yeah.
second waves and the third wave. I don't know what wave I am, but um, so it's part of me thinks, well, so many people have already touched on these subjects before. I don't need to. Well, no, I am attracting with my frequency a completely
Different
different
audience.
wave of
Yeah.
people, a new wave.
Yeah.
And so they need to hear this. They need to hear it. They need to
Yeah.
get washed with it just the same way I was,
Yeah.
little bits
And
by little bits, little sprinkles.
your way of delivering the information, my way of delivering the information, it's all going to be received differently. And I know when I really first started, some of the things I listened to, I had to listen to them super slow and more than once, because there were all these concepts of things that I had never heard of. I didn't know what they meant, and so I try really hard to remember that, and put my information out in a way that it's understandable, it's
Mhm.
digestible, it's not so far over people's heads that they can't relate to, and I always use myself as an example. And so to give them something that they can put their finger on, and
Yeah.
say, so, and I've had plenty of people comment like, your video is what helped me relate this concept to my very indoctrinated,
Yeah.
family member, because of the way that you said it. And I have to give source all the credit, because I am not, by design, a television personality or any kind of like that, and I don't script anything, and it's just really a divinely led part of my mission, and
Yeah.
so he gets the credit. I'm
Yeah.
just the voice.
Well, I think this was wonderful. We've a little over an hour now, I think, and I don't want to get too long, but I
Yeah, we'll
love
have to
this
do
so
some
much.
more.
Yeah, let's plan on doing more. I think we touched on all my notes, even my little sticky notes from last night.
Well, I know we didn't talk about soul contracts
Not really, yeah.
and how that plays a part in reincarnation, and I think that's a good thing, because it kind of will give a lot more information on dispelling what death is.
Yes, I would love to do that. Um, maybe with you and Bryce because of something that Bryce and I know about me
Mhm.
and my past life. So, so the whole reincarnation thing, soul contract, and what I've known since I was a very small child.
Yeah.
So ooh,
We
I
can
just got
definitely do
chills,
that.
and that's when you know, like,
Yep. That's
It's,
your higher self giving you a yes. You know,
yes,
and some people are there's a video on my platform, is it your true higher self? And it teaches you how to use a pendulum for yes or no answers. Because until you get in tune with your body to know what a yes feels like and a no feels like, it's good to see your energy flow through an object for a yes or a no. And because of the indoctrination, people are like, oh, pendulums are bad. You're gonna, summon the demons and this kind of stuff. And there's spiritual hygiene. There's things that we do, and we protect our energy field. But that's not just when we use the pendulum. That's every single day.
every single day. We laugh. My kids and I laugh about this. We were invited to a party in the neighborhood years ago, and we all walked. We all me and the three children, we walk up. I've got a little hostess gift, of course, pickles. And we walk up, and it's in the backyard courtyard of this place. And we saw all these people, and I just went, follow me. Like, we walked right through the crowd. It just looked like they were all zombies. And then we just walked through the back door of this house. And then I said, I see the front door, kids. And we put the hostess gift down on the counter in their kitchen.
Kept on walking.
And we walked out the front door and got in the car and came on back home. And we just started laughing our butts off. So we were like, we're so weird. And I'm like, no, protecting our energy field.
Yes. And you knew then to honor that. There's so many people that feel that, and they're like, but this is the right thing for me to do. Like, I have to commune with them. I have to show my face. I have to, whatever, their work people, whatever. And my message is, no, you honor that. That's your soul telling you to run the other direction.
Run.
Yes.
And it was actually, now that I think back on it, it was actually the FCA. It was a party for the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And guess what? The next day we got an email asking if my son had left his ball cap there, because they knew that my son had played baseball out in the front yard with all the other kids. And I'm like, we just walked through. So it was like we were there. I'm telling you, there's this parallel universe. It was like we were there, but we weren't. I was like, all they knew is that they had received a 4-pack of my pickles with some bows on them on their counter.
There was evidence of your arrival, but they didn't know how
short-lived
this was
that
fun.
was. This was really fun. I'm glad we ended on a giggle, but so I'll try to edit this and get it out. I want to try to get it out today, because I think it's a good fun Friday post that people can tune in tonight or over the weekend. And
I'm gonna I'll send you my Telegram page,
so I'll link it down in the description box.
Disclosures, and people can come join us there for some.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for adding me yesterday. I really enjoyed it. There was a guy, I think some guy named Eric. Anyway, I was like,
they're all good. They're all good. They're all good souls, and they're kind of all on the same journey. And it's just a great safe space to just ask those questions, like, what the heck does this mean? And is anybody else feeling this? And it's just a good spot to have these conversations. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Okay.
Until
we'll
next
be back,
time.
y'all. We're gonna do this again. All right.
Yeah.
Bye, Nicole.
Bye.
That was fun.